20. Tradition and Revolution. The biggest paradox about the Church is that she is at the same time essentially traditional and essentially revolutionary. But that is not as much of a paradox as it seems, because Christian tradition, unlike all others, is a living and perpetual revolution. Human traditions all tend toward stagnation and decay. They try to perpetuate things that cannot be perpetuated. They cling to objects and values which time destroys without mercy. They are bound up with a contingent and material order of things, customs, fashions, styles, and attitudes, which inevitably change and give way to something else. The presence of a strong element of human conservatism in the Church should not obscure the fact that Christian tradition, supernatural in its source, is something absolutely opposed to human traditionalism. The living tradition of Catholicism is like the breath of a physical body. It renews life by repelling stagnation. It is a constant, quiet, peaceful revolution against death. As the physical act of breathing keeps the spiritual soul united to a material body, whose very matter tends always to corrupt and decay, so Catholic tradition keeps the Church alive under the material and social and human elements which will be encrusted upon it as long as it is in the world. The reason why Catholic tradition is a tradition is because there is only one living doctrine in Christianity. The whole truth of Christianity has been fully revealed. It has not yet been fully understood or fully lived. The life of the Church is the truth of God Himself, breathed out into the Church by His Spirit, and there cannot be any other truth to supersede and replace it. The only thing that can replace such intense life is a lesser life, a kind of death. The constant human tendency away from God and away from this living tradition can only be counteracted by a return to tradition, a renewal and a deepening of the one unchanging life that was infused into the Church at the beginning. And yet this tradition must always be a revolution, because by its very nature it denies the values and standards to which human passion is so powerfully attached. To those who love money and pleasure and reputation and power, this tradition says, be poor. Go down into the far end of society. Take the last place among men. Live with those who are despised. Love other men and serve them instead of making them serve you. Do not fight them when they push you around, but pray for those that hurt you. Do not look for pleasure, but turn away from things that satisfy your senses and your mind, and look for God in hunger and thirst and darkness, through deserts of the Spirit in which it seems to be madness to travel. Take upon yourself the burden of Christ's cross, that is, Christ's humility and poverty and obedience and renunciation, and you will find peace for your souls. This is the most complete revolution that has ever been preached. In fact, it is the only true revolution, because all the others demand the extermination of somebody else. But this one means the death of the man who, for all practical purposes, you have come to think of as your own self. A revolution is supposed to be a change that turns everything completely around, but the ideology of political revolution will never change anything except appearances. There will be violence, and power will pass from one party to another, but when the smoke clears and the bodies of all the dead men are underground, the situation will be essentially the same as it was before. There will be a minority of strong men in power exploiting all the others for their own ends. There will be the same greed and cruelty and lust and ambition and avarice and hypocrisy as before. For the revolutions of men change nothing. The only influence that can really upset the injustice and iniquity of men is the power that breathes in Christian tradition, renewing our participation in the life that is the light of men.